It has been 18 months since our last YouTube episode where Bill and I detailed the case against Harry Phipps. And in that episode, we reiterated the over 10 pieces of corroborated circumstantial evidence pointing towards Harry Phipps as the likely killer of the missing Beaumont children. And keep in mind, because of our investigation so far, Harry Phipps has been raised to a person of interest by SAPOL's Major Crime Branch in relation to the Beaumont children disappearance. Also, during the last 18 months, we had begun adding the finishing touches to writing the book Unmasking the Killer of the Missing Beaumont Children. Then through the publishing process, which is lengthy at times, challenging and time-consuming, but it is well worth it. The book Unmasking the Killer of the Missing Beaumont Children has been released and is selling very well both in Australia and overseas. The book is available in bookstores such as Dymocks and Collins, also Walmart, Barnes & Noble and Indigo Books USA, in addition to independent bookstores such as Kinokuniya Books, online booksellers such as Amazon Books, Angus & Robertson, Booktopia and Rakuten Kobo, and of course iTunes and as an audio book. Added to this have been health concerns for both of us, now completely on the mend. Overall, it may appear things have gone quiet in relation to this story and Harry Phipps' alleged involvement into the abduction and disappearance of Jane, Anna and Grant Beaumont. However, we can assure you it has not. In fact, things are heating up quite rapidly, as you will see in this episode. Bill and I have also recently spent 2 hours on Adelaide's 5AA evenings with Leith Forrest, discussing the book and new eye-opening developments in this case regarding Harry Phipps. Also, we recently have been involved in a production for Channel 7 for their latest true crime documentary series, soon to be released, The Hunters. This documentary once again highlights as Harry Phipps being the likely abductor and potential killer of the missing Beaumont children. We expose added and detailed game-changing information that will lead us back to the Castalloy Factory dig site of February 2018, and this time to dig deeper.
Well, reporter Brady Halls is at the new Castalloy Factory in Adelaide. Brady, what'll happen tomorrow?
You know, it's incredible, Trace. For 52 years, this was a mystery. It is now officially a police crime scene. At 8 o'clock tomorrow morning Adelaide time, police and forensic experts will enter an area just behind me here, in where that dirt patch is there, and they will dig about 2.5 to 3 metres below the surface to an area they say is of interest. When they announced this dig about a week ago, they had 46 fresh reports from the public in the past week, many concerning the former owner of this factory, Harry Phipps, and he has a number of connections to the Beaumont case. On the day the kids were swimming, he lived 250 metres away from where they were swimming. He is reported to be a pedophile, the £1 notes, the white purse, the police identikit picture that looks so much like him, and of course, the bizarre request to dig a hole at the back of his factory at the very time the Beaumont kids disappeared. You know, Trace, whatever happens here tomorrow, one thing is certain. The present owners of this factory have gone broke. The factory has only just announced it will be closing down. Let's hope by this time tomorrow night there might also be some closure to the disappearance of the Beaumont kiddies.
The release of the book and the new information supplied has raised quite a few eyebrows, politically and media-wise, as well as members of the public. Also, with the Facebook site Unmasking the Killer of the Missing Beaumont Children, we have further received calls giving us further negative information regarding Harry Phipps, further adding fuel to the fire. As mentioned, this episode is one of the last. As you will see, we have come to what we believe is the smoking gun. Why? Through our recent investigations, we find the ground level at the back of the Castalloy Factory in January 1966, where David and Robin, the then teenage boys, dug that grave-sized hole at the direction of Harry Phipps, was about 6 feet lower than the current ground level and at the Saypol Major Crime Branch directed dig in February 2018. In other words, when David and Robin began digging that grave-sized hole at the back of the Castalloy Factory in January 1966, the top of their heads was level with the bottom of the fence line and the outside footpath. As you can see in the image put together by Gus Marmit, graphic designer. How this dig came about is discussed in Chapter 18, The Factory Dig. When David and Robin approached Bill Hayes, they told him that as two teenage boys, they had dug a grave-sized hole. Now that's their words, not ours. This was at the back of the sandy area, note the sandy area, of the Castalloy Factory, done at the direction and under the instruction of Harry Phipps on the 29th and 30th of January 1966. As you can see also verbatim from this chapter, it was a hot weekend and the site was deserted. The hole was about their height or more in depth, 1 metre or so wide and about 2 metres long, and the boys were supplied with shovels by Phipps to let them onto the site through a large locked gate. The hole they dug was in sandy ground, and I repeat, sandy ground, and it took them 2 full days to complete because the sides kept falling in on them. After the first day, Phipps came and investigated the hole and told the boys that it needed to be much deeper and to come back the next day. David recalled Phipps made it very clear they had to have the hole dug and finished over the weekend. Saturday the 29th and Sunday the 30th of January 1966, while the factory was closed, and all happening 3 days after Jane, Anna and Grant Beaumont had gone missing. At this time, David and Robin described Harry as being in an agitated, impatient state. Once they had finished digging the hole to Harry's accepted dimensions, he paid the boys in pound notes and told them to fuck off, you little cunts, and never come back.
We were asked to dig a hole. It had to be done on the long weekend and finished by Sunday night. It was hot as heck, really hot. Occasionally come over to the hole and say, no, I want it deeper. And then he would just sit there and stare at us. And then he would drive away.
Remember that Jane, Anna and Grant Beaumont were also given a pound note to buy lunch by the man they met at Collie Reserve. A coincidence? We very much doubt that. Who could afford to give that amount of money that in today's currencies would be equivalent to around $40 to children? Only a very wealthy man, we would argue. Bill passed this information on to Major Crime, and with the assistance of major media outlets, the police finally raised their eyebrows. In February 2018, Saypol Major Crime felt obligated to follow up on this information by returning to the back of the Castalloy Factory, where David and Robin said they dug that grave-sized hole and utilised ground-penetrating radar, or as we call it GPR, to ascertain if any irregularity in the soil existed, and it did. There appeared to be an anomaly where the boys said they dug the hole. This information also stirred a hornet's nest with the media outlets here and overseas. Many set up camp outside Castalloy back footpath on Kincaid Avenue and the park across the road for hopefully that history-changing scoop. And really, who could blame them?
The testing took 3 days.
We're going to take this back to the lab and put all of these results together into one big 3D model of the site.
It then took nearly 2 weeks for data to be analysed both in Australia and overseas, and a profile of the soil where the Harkins said they had dug to be visually constructed. But when it was, what it showed was literally groundbreaking.
Hello, Xanthine?
Yeah.
The thing I'm really excited about is the features are about the right size, they're about the right shape, they're sitting at the right depth, and best of all, they're approximately in the area where the history from the site suggest that they should be.
In February 2018, SAPOL Major Crime began their dig where the anomaly was shown. After digging down about 6 foot through hardened soil, and I repeat, hardened soil, to hit softer sand, they found only a few small skeletal bones of sheep or cow or small reptile and a small amount of rubbish. Now this find had many mystified. Not only the two of us, but also David and Robin, but the media and public alike. We all asked why Harry Phipps would request such a hole of that dimensions to be dug, then place bugger all in it. This did not make sense and baffled all of us. As nothing of significance was found, there was a degree of disappointment and despair. This dig was deemed the last throw of the dice to hopefully bring the children home and finally solve the 50+ year age-old abduction. Now that was until David called Bill and me sometime after the dig, as he and his brother were still baffled, saying two things. Why did Harry Phipps have us dig such a large hole and put bugger all in it? Secondly, David described the type of soil they dug in at the back of the factory in late January 1966 as softer sand, like the typical beach sand, where David said the sides kept caving in on us, much like the sand the two men are standing on at this completion of the dig, as you can see in this image here. So something was not right. Bill and I initially attributed the condensing of the soil or the soil's changing texture from soft to complex over the past 50 years due to normal weathering conditions. This appeared to be the only explanation, but it still baffled all of us. However, as Alicia Moon once said, to unravel any mystery, find the start, untie that riddle, and the rest will follow. Then the penny dropped. What if the 6 foot of hardened soil was not originally from the area, that it was added as fill sometime later? We called David and asked, when you and Robin dug that hole, would we be correct in saying that when you started digging the hole at the direction of Harry Phipps, the ground level at the rear of the factory was about 6 foot lower than the bottom of the back fence, that your heads were about level with the bottom of the back fence when you started digging? The answer was yes. David reiterated in saying that in late January 1966, the ground level at the back of the Castalloy Factory was about 6 foot lower than the bottom of the back fence. And as the ground level sloped downward over 170 metres from the front of the Castalloy Moringi Avenue to reach the back at Kincaid Avenue, again 170 metres, as you can see in the images attached. Now, after investigating a little, what we discovered was, according to some long-time retired senior Castalloy managers, sometime after January 1966, Harry Phipps had a lot of topsoil placed over the back area, which included the hole the boys dug. This adding of the fill raised the back level of the Castalloy vacant land by about 6 foot, making the ground now level with the bottom of the back fence. Hence, one can see this in the image of the SAPOL dig where the two different soils are shown. One is the original ground sandy soil well below the fence line, and then the more solid added topsoil or fill that Harry had added. What we discovered is the more solid texture soil was transported from outside the area, much to the displeasure of Castalloy's senior managers, who could not understand why Harry had this done. It made no sense, and as you would imagine, a lengthy and costly exercise given the large area that was elevated. And more corroboration did come. Firstly, we sent the dig images to a Dr. Kenneth R. Olson, Professor of Soil Science, the Department of Natural Resources and Environment Science, University of Illinois, USA, who knew about the Beaumont Children abduction and disappearance and was more than glad to assist. We asked him a few questions. Could the sand the two men are standing on turn into a more solid soil over the decades? And if not, could the more solid soil, see the image here, be from somewhere else? Dr. Kenneth Olson replied, "Dear gentlemen, many thanks for the images regarding the factory dig. It appears that 5 foot of soil material, parent material or sea horizon overlays the sand. If 5 feet of this soil material was added during the last 60 years, it would most likely be fill material. It would not be possible to naturally add 5 foot of parent material in that shorter period. There is not a well-developed soil profile in that fine texture soil material with topsoil." So in a nutshell, what he was saying, the hardened soil came from elsewhere and was not originally part of the native soil profile. Also using Hayden Phipps's own words for corroboration. Now, when you read chapter 13, The Eyewitness, page 160, second paragraph in Unmasking the Killer of the Missing Beaumont Children, in Hayden Phipps's recorded interview with Bill Hayes, he informs Bill about the drop from the front of the Castalloy Factory vacant land, which is Meringue Avenue, to the back, reaching Kincaid Avenue. In Hayden's words, the company would dispose of the sand castings from the foundry into the sandpit or dump, which had a drop of 3 to 4 metres from the front to the back, and use a bulldozer kept on the site to flatten the piles of rubbish. According to Hayden, Harry could and frequently did drive that bulldozer. Okay, Hayden was a little bit out with his measurements, but indicated quite a drop from the front of the Castalloy Factory, Meringue Avenue, to the back fence of Kincaid Avenue. Also, in an email from David and Robin, who dug that grave-sized hole on the 29th and 30th of January 1966, he writes, "I, David Harkins, state that the weekend following the 26th of January 1966, my brother Robin and I were engaged in digging a hole of grave-sized dimensions at the back of the Castalloy Factory. We got this job through our father, who worked at the factory. The dimensions of the hole had to be 6 foot long, 5 foot deep, 3 foot wide. The ground we were digging in was soft sand, and we remember that the ground level was lower than the bottom of the back fence line and the outside footpath on Kincaid Avenue. This is not what it is today, with the ground level now being level with the bottom of the back fence. The bottom of our hole was 5 to 6 foot deeper than the added fill depth, as you can see here. My brother Robin confers with these memories. Regards, David." Now also from a former senior manager at the Castalloy Factory. "Hi Stuart, I think I might have mentioned before, when Harry bought the land, the difference in height between Meringue Avenue sloping down towards Kincaid Avenue would have been well over 1 metre. Kind regards, Frank." Then there is Mapland, South Australia, the Department of Environment and Water, after reviewing and evaluating the topography of the Castalloy area in the 1950s and 60s. They write, "Contours of the land were obtained from aerial photography, consisting of lines that connect points of equal elevation, allowing you to visualise the shape and steepness of the terrain features. There is a 2 metre contour, 8 metre to 6 metre respectively over the site. In a nutshell, a 2 metre or 6 foot decline or slope of the land from Meringue Avenue to Kincaid Avenue. In other words, Sapol's major crime, through no fault of their own, only dug down through 6 feet of Harry Phipps's added topsoil to reach the original ground level of January 1966. This is now fact." Then what did the GPR show? It showed that there was an anomaly in the soil, which there was. However, GPR, ground penetrating radar, is a fantastic instrument. However, like all technologies, GPR has its limitations. GPR is a perfect accompaniment to electromagnetic locating methods, but it does not come without its challenges. in that it is not a perfect solution for all work sites, especially changing soil types and ground conditions, which means there are times when GPR's effectiveness will be faced with some challenges. Exact depth reading just may be one. So what's next? Now we have all this new information regarding the ground levels. We must return to the February 2018 dig site. This time we should first dig through the 6 foot of Harry Phipps's added topsoil to reach the original ground level of 1966, which is the soft sand. Once the fill is cleared away, we should start from the original January 1966 ground level and dig down about another 6 foot through the sandy soil David and Robin dug in. Yes, it's a big job, but what price do we place on the life of a child? And do we want to hopefully solve this case or just give up? Ask yourself this: if these were your children, what would you do? Overall, at the completion of this next dig, what will we find? We don't know, but let's not die wondering. The hole must have been dug for a reason. Is it just a coincidence that it was dug under the instructions of the man that we say had taken the children only 3 days before? And remember, Albert Einstein once said, coincidence is God's way of remaining anonymous. The dig images and explanations are also up on Facebook unmasking the killer of the missing Beaumont children. We also request, if you want to assist in hopefully solving this case and to make a difference, then please contact your local police major crime branch, media outlets, not just once but many times, with the information we just put forward in abbreviated form, plus the images. Insist that they must return to the back of the Castalloy Factory and dig deeper, for the valid reasons explained. They will only move when the public opinion becomes overwhelming. Opinion that they will ignore at their peril. It's up to all of us to make a change. So until the next episode, where optimistically we get a positive outcome to the Beaumont children abduction and disappearance, Bill and I appreciate you listening. Also, we are very happy to answer any questions that you may have by going to our Facebook page. Also, buying the book Unmasking the Killer of the Missing Beaumont Children, which has now reached bestseller status. In the meantime, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we leave you with this quote by Dale Carnegie that has inspired all of us all the way through. The most important things in the world have been accomplished by people who have kept on trying when there seemed no hope at all.